Ashwood was the kind of town people didn't move to. They just never found a way out of it. Cracked sidewalks, flickering street lights, and the scent of diesel and drizzle hung in the air like a memory that overstayed its welcome. At the corner of Main and Willow stood Rosie's Diner, a 24-hour relic of better days, with a neon sign that buzzed louder than the customers inside. Samantha Brooks wiped down the last table with mechanical precision. Her black apron was stained with coffee, syrup, and the kind of exhaustion that seeps into your bones. At 25, she carried herself like someone older. Shoulders always tense, eyes ringed with the kind of sleeplessness that no concealer could hide. Her shifts at Rosie's weren't just for rent. They kept the lights on at home, paid for her mother's medications, and kept her younger brother Jake from drifting further into the kind of crowd that didn't believe in second chances. The lull after the dinner rush was sacred. That's when Samantha would slip into the back booth, the one by the kitchen door with the flickering bulb above, and pull out her battered business textbook. A cup of stale coffee, 3 highlighters, and pages of scribbled notes became her nightly ritual. No earbuds, no distractions, just her and the dream she refused to let go of. She was halfway through a case study on market segmentation when the bell over the diner door jingled. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. He came in every Thursday night, always alone, always dressed like someone who had places to be, but chose not to go. Black trench coat, silver watch, and a presence that turned heads without trying. David Carver. Most people only knew the name from headlines. Tech Titans AI breakthrough, Carver A-Tech acquires 2 more startups. But in Ashwood, he was the guy who ordered black coffee and a plain turkey sandwich, no mayo. No one knew why he came here. Maybe nostalgia, maybe guilt, maybe he liked the silence. That night, he didn't sit in his usual booth. He paused, watched. Samantha didn't notice. Not at first. Her fingers were smudged with ink, lips mouthing words from the page, trying to memorize a formula that might one day earn her a different kind of life. David's eyes narrowed, not in judgment, but in something closer to memory. He knew that look, the hunger behind tired eyes, the way someone holds onto a dream by the fingernails. He had seen it before, long ago, in the reflection of a subway window, when he was a college dropout building code at 2 a.m. under street lamps. This wasn't a charity case. This was grit, purpose wrapped in waitress shoes and unshakable focus. He took a seat at the counter but didn't open the menu. "Hey, Rosie," he said, voice low. "Who's the girl in the back with the textbook?" Rosie, wiping down the espresso machine, didn't miss a beat. "That's Sam, hardest working person I know." "Why?" David's reply was quiet, almost to himself. "Because I think I just saw myself 15 years ago." The rain had picked up by the time Samantha slid into the booth across from her notes again. Her break was officially 10 minutes, unofficially as long as Rosie didn't need help with the regulars. She adjusted her ponytail, blinked away the sting of tired eyes, and tried to refocus on the paragraph she'd already read 3 times. David Carver watched quietly from the counter. He wasn't the kind of man to interrupt without purpose, but something about Samantha's intensity, the way she held her pen like it mattered more than the tips she'd collected that night, kept pulling his attention. Rosie refilled his cup. "You want your sandwich?" "In a minute," he said, eyes still fixed on the booth. Rosie followed his gaze and gave a knowing smirk. "Are you offering her a job or a date?" David raised a brow. "Neither." "She reminds me of someone I used to be," Rosie softened. "Well, just don't go offering her false hope. She's had enough of that from this town." He nodded, took one more sip, then stood and walked toward the booth. Samantha didn't notice until his shadow blocked her textbook. She glanced up, startled. "Oh, I'm sorry. This table's taken." David smiled faintly. "I'm not here for the table." He motioned to the seat across from her. "Mind if I sit?" She blinked, eyes narrowing just slightly. "Sure," she said carefully. She recognized him now. Everyone did. He slid in, hands folded on the table. "I've seen you here before, always studying. Are you a student?" Samantha glanced at her textbook, then back at him. Yeah, online classes, business degree, trying to finish before the loans finish me. His smile widened just slightly. That's ambitious. Or desperate, she muttered, then immediately regretted saying it out loud. But he didn't flinch. Ambition often looks like desperation before it pays off. There was a pause. Samantha stared at him, unsure where this was going. Listen, David said, leaning forward. I run a company, Carver AdTech. You've probably never heard of it, but we do a lot with AI, digital markets, and scalable services for small businesses. She nodded slowly. I've read about it. You bought out Microspark last year. That surprised him. You keep up with the industry? I will try. Doesn't cost anything to learn, she said, then added, yet. He gave a quiet laugh, then reached into his coat and pulled out a small card. Sleek, matte black, his name embossed in silver. This isn't a handout, he said. It's a test. Samantha hesitated. A test? I'm offering a scholarship, full ride, business program of your choice, and, if you're up for it, a paid internship at Carver Tech. The card sat between them like a dare. Samantha started. Her breath caught. Why? David didn't blink. Because I know potential when I see it, and because someone once gave me a chance when I was just a kid with calluses and an idea. Samantha's fingers hovered over the card, then slowly closed around it. I'll think about it, she whispered. No rush, he said, already standing. But just know, doors don't stay open forever. Some of them you have to walk through before you feel ready. As he walked away, Samantha stared down at the card in her hand. It didn't feel like plastic. It felt like a possibility. Samantha stood in front of the glass-paneled skyscraper like a child about to walk into a museum she didn't belong in. Carver AdTech's headquarters shimmered in the morning sun, steel, glass, and precision. Everything about it whispered success, speed, and people who drank coffee from cups that cost more than her entire shift's tip jar. Her fingers tightened on the strap of her thrift store purse. Her shoes pinched. The blazer she wore was second-hand, slightly too big in the shoulders. But she held her head high and stepped inside. The lobby was a world away from Rosie's diner. Quiet, cool, sterile, marble floors, digital walls streaming company metrics, no smell of grease or burnt toast, just air freshener and money. A receptionist in a navy blue suit greeted her with a nod. You must be Samantha Brooks. Mr. Carver is expecting you. 28th floor. The elevator ride was silent. Samantha caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. Eyes wide, hair pulled tight, hands clenched. She looked like someone trying to pass for something she wasn't, but under the fear was a flicker of something stronger, determination. When the elevator dinged open, a woman with sleek hair and sharp heels was waiting. Samantha? I'm Dana, head of PR. I'll walk you to orientation. Samantha followed her through a maze of glass offices and open-concept workspaces. People barely looked up from their screens. Conversations were clipped, jargon heavy. Everyone here looked like they belonged, polished, efficient, fast. Dana gave her a quick rundown of HR procedures, company culture, and benefits. Then a digital tablet was pressed into her hand with a personalized welcome. Her name on the screen looked foreign, like it didn't belong there. After the paperwork, Dana motioned her toward a modern desk nestled into a pod of junior strategists. This'll be your workspace. You'll be shadowing Ethan Vaughn on the Peterson project. Any questions? Samantha blinked. Who's right behind you? Came a voice. She turned to see him. Ethan Vaughn, mid-30s, crisp shirt, narrow tie, posture like a blade. He didn't offer a handshake. So you're the waitress, he said flatly. Samantha's spine stiffened. I'm Samantha. Ethan's smile didn't reach his eyes. Sure. Listen, this isn't a community outreach program. If Carver's bringing in pet projects, just try not to get in the way. Before she could reply, he turned and walked off. Dana gave her a tight smile. Don't mind him. He's Territorial. Samantha sat at her desk. Her hands trembled, just a little. The screen in front of her blinked on, waiting for her credentials. Everything around her buzzed with control, deadlines, expectations. She took a breath. This was nothing compared to 12-hour shifts and emergency room visits with her mother. Nothing compared to scraping together rent or calming her brother down after another fight at school. They didn't have to like her. She wasn't here to be liked. She was here to earn her place. And she would. One meeting, one project, one sleepless night at a time. 2 weeks in, Samantha had memorized everyone's coffee orders, learned how to decode internal Slack sarcasm, and stopped flinching every time Ethan spoke in that icy, clipped tone of his. She stayed late, listened more than she talked, and asked the kinds of questions that made junior staff look at her differently. But it wasn't until the Peterson project team hit a wall that she dared to speak up. They were brainstorming for a new AI-driven budgeting app, trying to crack the working-class market. Ethan paced at the head of the table, flinging jargon like throwing knives. The rest of the team scribbled half-hearted notes. "No one's biting," he snapped. "We need traction, a campaign that doesn't sound like a TED Talk." Samantha, who had stayed silent up until now, cleared her throat. "Maybe. We stop talking to people like they're problems to fix," she said quietly. All eyes turned. Ethan gave her a hard look. "Meaning?" She straightened her back. "I used to wait tables at Rosie's. You know what I saw? People don't want apps that tell them how broke they are. They want tools that speak their language. I respect their hustle." Someone from across the table, Jason from Analytics, raised an eyebrow. "So what's your idea?" Samantha flipped open her notebook, heart pounding. "We call it the real budget. Real lives. Stories from real families, truck drivers, single moms, retired vets, using the app to gain control, not just survive. We center them, not the tech. Let them tell you." We listen. Silence. Then, surprisingly, Dana nodded. "It's grounded, emotional." "It's off-brand," Ethan cut in. "We're not a charity." Samantha met his gaze, firm. "Neither is Walmart, but they speak to the everyday consumer better than we do." The room tensed. Then, from the doorway, a calm voice cut through. "I'd like to hear more." David Carver stepped in, hands in his pockets, eyes only on Samantha. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Walk me through it," David said. And she did. Voice steady, eyes lit, she showed mock-ups she'd designed at 2 a.m. and narrated real scenarios she'd seen in her own life. How a single parent could track groceries. How someone like her mother could plan for medicine without overdraft fees. When she finished, the room was still. David smiled faintly. "Start refining it. This could be our next rollout." Samantha nodded, chest tight with pride. Ethan said nothing, but his eyes burned. Later that night, alone in his office, Ethan opened her shared drive. He clicked through her folder of notes, screenshots, and mock-ups. Then he copied everything onto a flash drive. He stared at the folder one last time before closing it. "She wants to play in the big leagues," he muttered. "Let's see how she handles getting tackled." Monday morning came with an edge. Samantha walked into the conference room early, heart humming with nerves and caffeine. Today was the internal pitch. The real budget campaign she'd poured her soul into was ready, refined, sharpened, backed by numbers, and wrapped in purpose. Only, something was off. The team was already gathered, but the energy was strange. Dana wouldn't meet her eyes. Jason looked pale. And Ethan. Ethan stood at the front of the room, a smug calmness settling around him like a second suit. "Good morning," he began. "I'd like to present the new direction for our working class initiative, something I've been developing for the past few weeks." Samantha froze. No, he didn't. He clicked the remote, and there it was, her title slide, her design template, her opening line. He stole it. Word for word, frame by frame, she couldn't breathe. The walls seemed to shrink, and all she could hear was the dull thud of her pulse pounding in her ears. David wasn't in the room yet. Good. She stood, gripping the edge of the chair. Dana caught her gaze. Her lips parted, apologetic, but she didn't speak. Ethan kept going, smooth and practiced, pitching her campaign like it was born from his mind, not her sweat-soaked nights and whispered notes during diner breaks. When he finished, the room erupted in cautious applause. That's when David walked in. "Impressive," he said, nodding slowly. "But I thought this was Samantha's campaign." The room went still. Ethan laughed lightly. "She contributed, of course, but I reshaped it, rebuilt the framework." David looked at Samantha. "Is that true?" She could have exploded. She could have pulled out every time-stamped file, every email, every hand-sketched wireframe. But she didn't. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a single printed sheet, an earlier version of the campaign outline, dated, annotated, her initials on every line. She placed it gently on the table. "I didn't build it for credit," she said quietly, "but I won't let it be stolen, either." The tension crackled. David picked up the paper, read, his brow furrowed. Ethan shifted. "David, this is petty." David held up a hand. "Leave the room." "What?" "Now." Ethan hesitated, then stormed out, jaw clenched. David turned to Samantha. "You handled that better than most executives I know." She exhaled slowly, her hands still shaking. "That campaign matters," she said, "not just to me, to the people it's for." David nodded. "Let's make sure it lands." "And Samantha?" "Yes," he smiled. "I think it's time you had your own team." She blinked. "Wait, what?" "You've earned it." Tears welled, unbidden. This wasn't just a promotion. This was proof that her voice mattered, that grit had weight, that honesty, even in the face of betrayal, wasn't weakness, it was power. 3 years later, Rosie's diner looked almost the same. Wobbly stools, faded checkered floors, and the same buzzing neon sign that never quite spelled open correctly. The coffee still tasted like burnt ambition, and the window seat still had the best view of the parking lot's lone streetlight. Samantha hadn't been back in a while, not because she forgot where she came from, but because she'd been building something that didn't leave much time to look back. Now in her late 20s, she walked with a confidence that came from being tested and trusted. Her once thrifted clothes had been replaced by sleek, clean lines. But she still carried the same old leather notebook in her bag, its corners frayed and pages stuffed with ideas scribbled during those long diner nights. She took a quiet seat in the back, ordered coffee out of habit, and waited. Across the room, a girl, maybe 19, maybe 20, sat alone at a booth, laptop open, earbuds dangling around her neck, eyes locked on a screen filled with charts and highlighted text. She looked exhausted, but focused. Samantha smiled softly. She waited until the girl stepped away to refill her water. Then, carefully, she reached into her purse, pulled out a small white envelope, and slid it under the girl's laptop. No name, no logo, just a handwritten note. When the girl returned, she stared at the envelope warily, then opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a prepaid scholarship for the Ashwood School of Business, and a line written in the same soft script Samantha once saw on her own gift of opportunity. Doors won't stay open forever. But sometimes, if you're lucky, someone holds one open just long enough. The girl looked around, confused. Samantha had already slipped out the side door. Outside, the wind carried the scent of rain, just like that night all those years ago when her future first shifted course. Now, Samantha led the Carver-Atech Community Impact Division. Her real budget campaign had reached over 2 million families. She spoke at conferences, mentored first-gen students, and led Tech for Good partnerships in underserved towns. But the best part? Every year, she funded 5 full scholarships, quietly, anonymously, just like someone once did for her. David Carver had since stepped back from day-to-day operations, his mentorship now more strategic, distant. But he always made time for Samantha. Over lunch one afternoon, he had said it simply, "You weren't my project, Sam. You were my reminder of what mattered, of where greatness often begins. And now, Samantha was someone else's reminder, not because she'd won, but because she had never forgotten. The diner door jingled behind her as she walked away into the cool night air, her heart full and steady. Some legacies are built in boardrooms. Others, in the quiet kindness of noticing someone trying to rise.